Alabama is more or less physically shaped by the end of the ice ages. Now, the last ice age ends about 15,000 years ago. And somewhat prior to this, the final finishing of the Alabama landscape is complete.
When I was growing up, the Delta was one of those places that was kind of scary. And you'd get on the Delta, because when you got into the Delta, you get lost.
When I was younger, none of these houses were here. There was nothing here. It was how it was 1,000 years ago.
We have backwaters and tributaries and gullies and coves where a lot of plants and animals live, and these are all in fresh water. And this ultimately joins the salt water of the Gulf of Mexico. So this is referred to as a part of the estuary, a place where the fresh water meets the salt water.
The Mobile River Delta is particularly diverse because of its geographic positioning in the southeastern U.S. This whole region here, this dark green here, is the region that we call the Delta. And in there you have a complex array of ecosystems, everything from bottomland forests and swamps to sloughs and oxbow lakes to marshes and even islands. The southeast is one of the wettest regions on the continent, and the Mobile River Basin, which drains to the Mobile River Delta, is one of the wettest areas in the U.S. And so a tremendous amount of water plus the sediments and nutrients that it carries comes to the delta and supports these ecosystems that are the homes for hundreds and actually thousands of species.
The rivers bring down sand and silt and soil from the northern part of the state, which is deposited here, and it floods every year when we have a lot of rain.
So much water comes in from the Tombigbee and the Alabama rivers that the Mobile River that's formed from their confluence can't contain itself, and the river splits into 5 rivers by the time it reaches the edge of Mobile Bay.
The Delta is the place where most wildlife goes to breed. All of our seafood comes from these areas, from these grasses. White shrimp, brown shrimp, you name it. All the baby fish and the oysters and the crabs, they all harvest and hatch and happen right here in these water bodies.
We all grew up with turtles. We don't think, turtles, big deal. But you know, turtles globally are not that common. There aren't that many turtle species. Many of them are declining pretty rapidly. If we were really going to put our conservation dollars into preserving this incredible global resource, these turtles, where would we put it? So they went and looked in the Amazon, and the Amazon is incredibly diverse in terms of turtle species, really impressive, hugely impressive. And they went to the Mekong Delta in Vietnam, and you know, everybody always knew there's incredible turtle diversity there, and there is, it's extraordinary. They said, boy, that's really important too. And so then they went to the Brahmaputra Plain in northern India at the edge of the Himalayas, and they said, boy, this is incredible. This beats Mekong, this beats the Amazon, this beats almost any place else. It's extraordinary how much diversity is there. And then they came to this little place, this crazy little place, and they said, but here is where the greatest concentration of turtle diversity in the world is. In the world. Baldwin County, Mobile County, Clark County, the 3 counties that surround the edge of the Mobile-Tensaw Delta.
You can find, several dozen plant species per square yard. Some of the most exciting of which are carnivorous species, plants that consume animals to get their nutrients, not necessarily their energy, but their nutrients. And that includes the pitcher plants and the sundews. And so what happens is that leaf, that modified leaf, sits out there like that, and you get these little threads, essentially, with a little tip of what looks like water on there, but it's actually a sugary dew. And so insects are attracted to that. They think, oh, free meal. And then that leaf gradually folds itself inward towards the center, and digestive enzymes, not unlike those in your stomach, are released on the insect. And the nutrients, especially nitrogen, that's the one that's really hard to come by in these ecosystems. And with that little extra boost, it helps the plant grow and to reproduce.
If you look at Bartram, you'll find a quote in William Bartram in 1775 that says they were the largest, tallest, and straightest trees he had ever seen or even heard of. The Tenn-Tom swamp, the Mobile Delta, is the dangest swamp in eastern America. What are the dangers for the Mobile Delta? If assuming that for the most part we have saved it from being logged, and to a great deal we have. Now we've got to be careful not to overexploit it.
The beauty and the importance of the Mobile-Tensaw Delta is it can take a lot of pollution, the pollution from Atlanta and Birmingham and from a drainage basin that's, 2/3 of the state of Alabama, as well as those other major cities.
The good thing about the wetlands, though, is that they're like giant filters, and they suck up all the yuck, and then they turn it into something beautiful.
It's the big filter before it goes into the bay, before it enters the Gulf.
If you clear cut the wetlands, guess what? They're not going to grow back. If you cut that land down, then you won't have any more bass fish in the river. You won't have any more flounder because there's nowhere for them to go and get shade and have baby fish.
The thing about threats such as the logging, sea level rise, and dams is that any one of them alone wouldn't necessarily be a huge threat to the Delta, but their combined impact can be significant. On the one hand, there's aspects of outdoor recreation that are damaging to ecosystems. But on the other hand, we want to encourage more people to be out there. There's a fine line to walk there.
We've had more extinctions than any other place in North America.
Alabama consistently undervalues itself. The Mobile Delta has been damaged, and it's going to be a long time before Bartram's tall, straight, and enormous trees return. But it's there, and all we have to do is let it alone, let nature take its way. We don't need to second guess nature. She knows what to do.
Galliard Island is a triangular-shaped island in the northwestern quadrant of Mobile Bay. Galliard Island does wonderful things for the bay by offering a sanctuary for marine birds to breed. Originally, however, it was born of ecological controversy. It is essentially the spoil from the dredging of a coastal creek that was dredged to create the Theodore Ship Canal. And that was an important piece to bringing heavy industry to Mobile. However, while it was being planned, there was a lot of concern voiced about the destruction to natural ecosystems. So along comes this guy, a dentist in Mobile named Wilson Galliard, and he had a bright idea. He said, let's take the spoil from the dredge and let's create a marine sanctuary out in the bay where birds could breed. A year later, there were 4 pairs of brown pelicans nesting on the island. When those 4 pelicans nested out at Galliard Island, not only was it a big boost to conservationists, but it was a hint of something great that was to come. By the 1990s, over 10,000 brown pelicans were nesting each summer out at Galliard Island. And it's not only brown pelicans, it's laughing gulls and royal terns and about 8 other species that nest out there, some of which don't nest anywhere else on the Alabama coast. And I think that the folks that are involved in planning on the coast need to take a hard look at growth and development in the region and think about how to balance and enhance economic growth while at the same time protecting and enhancing our natural resources as well. We can do both. We can protect biodiversity and people at the same time.
And what you have behind us is proof that the Mobile-Tensile Delta exists in complete community with the city of Mobile.
The fact that we have had the good sense to preserve large portions of the Delta is going to be something that the future will look back and say, boy, those guys had it right.
Well, the Delta is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I think a part of the Judeo-Christian background is one of appreciation for the world in which we live. We are very fortunate to have such an extraordinary place. The Mobile Delta is the jewel of Alabama, in my perspective.